everybody, and welcome back to the Izzyverse. We have a great show lined up for you. A lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to be talking about comics. We're going to be talking about a new imprint, Fenom Comics. And I'm going to introduce the team behind Fenom Comics as well as all the stuff that they have on the horizon. But before we do that, I just want to let everybody know certain things that are happening the next couple of days, starting with this weekend. PoochieCon is happening this weekend. It's only going to be at Teaneck, New Jersey. So come out there. It is a anime arcade video con. It's going to be something really fun. I'm going to be part of the panel. I will be most likely moderating that panel. So come check that out, happening this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. I'll be there for Saturday. So go check that one out. All right. And also, in case you didn't know, you can get 15% off if you go to Comic Exposure and use promo code Izzyverse. That is something that I want to share with everybody, let everybody know that that's happening. So let's get on with the show and let's talk a little bit about Fenom Comics. So what is Fenom Comics? Well, Fenom Comics at first, where I first got to know a little bit about Fenom Comics was through the book Hunter Ninja Bear. And they launched a Kickstarter. And we're going to talk a little bit about that Kickstarter. My understanding is that they met the Kickstarter goal. So congratulations to the team. And let's first introduce the team behind Fenom Comics. And that is Tom and Joan Finoli. Did I get it?
Fenolio. Yeah, Fenolio.
you like the way I just paused for a second just to get it out, right? What's going on, guys?
Nothing, Izzy. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you for wearing the Statue of Liberty shirt there.
Well, we're sponsored by Coors Light tonight, so we figured that.
Shout out.
Yeah.
So,
where are we at right now?
Yeah, right there. That's for you. Yeah. I
There you go.
didn't think about it. Yeah.
So where are we located at right now?
Yeah, right now we are in Aurora, Illinois. We're about 40 minutes southwest of downtown Chicago.
Come on, who doesn't know Aurora, Illinois?
Yeah.
I know all about Aurora, Illinois. I'm a huge 90s fan.
If you're making that up, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's our personal bat cave.
There you go. So I want to also introduce to the team here the artist behind Hunter Ninja Bear, and let's make sure I get the right screen. There we go. Mel Ruby, he's going to be joining us right now, so let's bring in Mel. Hey, Mel, what's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, Easy? Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. So Mel's the penciler behind Hunter Ninja Bear. We're going to talk more about that, but we have one more guest here, and I do believe I got to make sure I have the right slide for this one. We got Rob Hunter, right? And he is, let's see if I can get the right slide. There we go. He's our inker for the book. So let's bring in Rob. What's going on, Rob?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Rob.
Hey,
All right. All right. So now with that being said, let's go ahead. Let's remove this to the stream here. And let's start talking a little bit about Hunter Ninja Bear. All right. Now we got a nice 4-window screen. Talk to me, guys. Tom and Joe, tell me a little bit about Fenom Comics before we start talking about all the other fun stuff that we want to talk about.
Well, you know what, Joe and I have got all these stories growing up, and we've always wanted to put in the paper. So, just it kind of got to that point in our life, and we said, let's pull the trigger. And our first sit down was with Rob Hunter. So we flew down to Florida, and we said, Rob, help us out here. This is what we want. We've got a story. Actually, the story that we pitched to him was something fierce. And Rob goes, hey, I've got a catalog of artists, a lot of buddies that I could pull in. And to do this right, you're going to have to go that route. So really, Fenom Comics was Joe and I kind of coming with the stories, but we were able to really kind of merge with Rob that brought us Chuck, that brought us Mel. So a lot of this, it's kind of neat to have Rob on here because if it wasn't for Rob, I'm not sure if Fenom Comics would really be a thing. So, maybe a public thank you to Rob because,
It's kind of a trip, isn't it, Rob?
Rob is the bridge of everyone.
Yeah.
Go, Rob.
So, Rob, you hear from Tom and Joe. They tell you, hey, we have these great ideas to do this comic imprint. What's your thought going in on this?
Well, the first thing I did was I read their first script, and I was like, wow, um, this is very cool. This is super cool. And the only guy I knew that would do it justice was Chuck Dixon.
The great
And
Chuck Dixon.
yes, yes. And I had worked with him at CrossGen, so I knew that it was just kind of down his alley. He would kick butt on it. And Chuck and I were talking with Joe and Tom about who would pencil it. And Chuck and I both had worked with Mel in the past, and we just were like, wow, Mel would probably do a spectacular job on it. Yeah. So that's really how it just got rolling from there.
So you contact Mel, and now Mel, you tell me your side of the story.
Oh yeah, I was just on my way to church at that time when he contacted me. I haven't spoken or chat with Rob in years, and so I was like, "Oh, it's kind of interesting that this guy's contacting me." So I picked it up immediately, and he told me that, "Hey, we're looking for an artist, and this new company. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Oh heck yeah! I'm always interested in projects. I never really turn down projects, especially in this industry. You just never know."
Yeah, project comes in, you got to grab it, right?
And so and I told him, tell me more about it, and he said that there's this new company, his boss, sky's the limit, and that they have this new cool idea. He didn't tell me the story, what the story was about, but just a brand new company alone, would make any artist curious. And so when he told me again, page rate wise is pretty much sky's the limit, and I'm like, hey, I'm on board for that. Yeah, so it's all good.
Yeah, that does sound good. Now, Tom and Joe, I'm going to go back to you guys. When you first started thinking about Fenom Comics, were you hesitant, or you just wanted to go all the way in with this? Tell me a little bit about the idea behind Fenom Comics. Now you have people like Rob, you have Chuck, you have Mel who are pretty much on board. But what was your initial thought getting into this business? Because again, it's another comic imprint, right? We have so many right now. So what makes Fenom different?
I guess that's $1 million question. Is that we always thought that that we could tell a good story, and what we didn't like about DC and Marvel and all this is that it was just the same story. We've had 12 Spider-Man movies, right? We've had 8 Batmans, and we just had all these stories that weren't really superhero stories. And so what we wanted to do was to do it the right way. So we thought, we've always loved comics. It was a great medium, and it was Joe's idea. Said, well, hey, let's not go at this 10%. Let's go at 120%, and that's what we did. So our first, really, Joe and I's first conversation we had was, who do we want to contact? Let's get some big name people, and that's where Rob came in. And then through Mel, then we brought Ivan Nunes in. So really, we couldn't have lucked out, because the one thing that isn't told is that we would give the scripts, or we give the synopsis to Chuck. Chuck would nail out the script that was just mind-blowing. And then these guys were a machine. We've had a lot of projects, but these guys were just they were a machine. Everything was on time. Everything was clockwork. And we said, boy, this is easy, okay. And little did we know how exceptional these guys are. And I'm not taking away the other projects, but these guys were beyond systematic. They were just on the clock, on the schedule, and everything was to the day. So it was really amazing. So it was kind of our first thing was just to make sure we had the right people, because that's what makes things work. It's never the people upstairs. It's the people doing the work. And that's what we want.
Yeah, the synergy, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Mel, you get this script from Chuck.
Uh-huh.
First of all, it's Chuck Dixon writing the script, right? From an idea from Tom and Joe.
Right.
You see this script. What is the first thought that comes into your head when you're reading a Chuck Dixon script?
I was immediately blown away. I mean, Chuck Dixon. This is when Rob had mentioned that that's the writer. I'm like, whoa. How did we even get Chuck involved in this? I mean, I I was thinking, okay, we'd start off something small, but no, it was no brainer. I was definitely on board when I heard Chuck was gonna be doing the writing because him and I had worked on Punisher back in the early '90s, and so I was flattered to have been chosen to work on this book, and so yeah, I mean, as soon as the script came, again, it was like back from doing lots of actions. Comparing it to the book that I was working on, at that time, which was Clash of Kings, and it didn't have so many actions in there, and I was kind of getting drained by that. And so with this new thing from Chuck, it just spiked. I mean, it just sparked everything. I was so engaged in it, and this what made us like machines because we were just having fun working on this book, especially my part of the end of this book, right? And so. Chuck again, when he writes, when he scripts it out, he connects with the artist. He knows what will look good and what needs to be a splash. And so I'm grateful for that.
So my next question for you, because this is going to lead to Rob's question, was it traditional pencils or was it digital?
When Rob had mentioned about it's gonna be original, the pencil and the paper, and I told him I won't be able to because I was working on another project, which was Clash of Kings, right? So in order for me to fit that in the schedule, I would have to use digital, and Rob was totally cool about that, and from the Fenolia brothers, they were cool with it. So I'm like, oh, all right, I can definitely do this. Besides, it's something that I'm moving on to. It's just because there's so much more that you can do with digital rather than the traditional, and I'm able to pull that off to make it look better. So there's just no way that I can. I mean, I'm not saying I want to go back to the traditional way, but there's just so much more that you can discover just going through digital. I mean, we're all artists here. I'm sure we've all touched digital techniques, and you feel the difference.
Yeah, definitely. I can tell you that for a fact.
It's like having high-speed internet. You can't go back to dial-up. There's no
To dial up AOL, right? The good old days.
Yeah, and so again, going back to the original, I mean the downside of it, you can't sell anything original, for that. And so, but with Rob inking over the digital stuff, that is the original. I mean, he can turn around and use that as a way of investing, right?
Yeah. So let's go to Rob. Let's go to Rob and ask that question, right? Because Rob's the inker here, right?
Right.
Inkers. First of all, I love inkers. Because I mean that honestly, because I'm a penciler originally. I'm originally a penciler, and I remember doing a book once, and I had an inker do the work, and I wasn't a fan of his inks. I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan of inks until I realized, the techniques that go along with it, and then I myself and started learning how to become more of an inker to a pencil as a penciler. So talk to me a little bit about this process in particular, taking Mel's pencils, digital pencils, and translating it through ink. So what is your inking process through Mel's pencils?
Well, with Mel's digital pencils, I would just print them out blue line on full size 11 by 17 sheets of Strathmore, and then I ink them just like I would ink any other project. Now there might be a few things which Mel really never did this, because some guys, when they pencil digital, they will like zoom in on tiny little things and try to make them absolutely perfect. Which what's the what's the point of that? Yeah, what's the point? Someone is still, especially if you have an inker who's inking them traditionally. What's the point? And when it gets printed, what's the point again? It'll all just get mixed together. So Mel was actually really good about that. He is always thinking about the pencils and that I would be inking them. so he wouldn't go too crazy with that type of stuff. So then it was, like 30 years of being in the business, I just have to handle it with, okay, it's blue instead of gray pencil. That's about it. It's a little cleaner. Some stuff you might look at the light blue and go, it's a little harder to, some of the little details you just gotta.
You have to interpret, right?
Yeah, there might be a little more guesswork just because it's that instead of pencils. I'd also like to add in that the difference with Phenom is that the bosses actually listen to us. When we have input or we need to tell them something, they listen, versus Marvel and DC. Really, Marvel and DC, the editors are like, can you do the book? Do you want to work? Do you want to get paid? Or would you like us to? Because you say no to Marvel and DC on anything, you probably will never get, you probably never get offered another project from that editor again, unless you've worked with them for years. So it's a really, oh yes, I do want to work in August is really what it comes down to. Or yes, I would like to work in the fall. So here's this horrible project, but I do need 3 issues of work. Versus Phenom, you're like, hey, this stuff is really cool. Would you like to work on it? That's in. And then when we have input, they're like, oh, that's a good idea, or that won't really work, but I still like the idea. It's like a two-way street with Phenom versus Marvel and DC, where you are Marvel and DC, do the work or we'll fire you, is really what it comes down to.
So it's really boils down to, like, are you a machine or are you a creator?
Yes. Yeah. They don't.
Right.
They don't want creators. Maybe they want the writer to be a creator, or maybe if you're a Dave Finch, they want the penciler to be a creator. They just want you to a machine to pencil, a machine to ink, a machine to color. That's all
I've talked to inkers before. Scott Hanna. I had Scott Hanna in the show a while back. He's an artist inker, right? Where when you look at a Scott Hanna ink work, what you're seeing is really Scott Hanna's work over someone's pencils, right?
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to Scott Hanna interpreting the pencils to his way, to his style. So, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because guys like him and John Romita work so well together, right? They have as that word I mentioned earlier, synergy with each other, right?
Yeah. It's true.
And there's that, Jim Lee, Scott Williams, that kind of thing. Frank Miller, Klaus Janson, those two guys in particular. Now, I know with Frank Miller and Klaus Janson, it's very similar to Jim Lee and Scott Williams, where it's really Scott Williams and Klaus Janson, and the other pencilers are doing layouts because they don't have a lot of time on their hands because they're busy doing 100 other things. But at the same time, what I like about this approach is more on the lines that it allows you to be creative, and it allows you to take the liberties that you probably wouldn't have been able to take on a Spider-Man book, on a Batman book, right?
Yeah.
Right. So Mel, there was a question I was going to ask you, Mel, in particular. Now it's escaping me. But once you did your pencils and once Rob did the inks, was Chuck happy with the work? We don't have Chuck to answer it, but tell me, how did Chuck feel about the work? He worked with you guys, I'm sure, so I'm sure he was confident about the work.
Oh yes, we made sure everyone was kept on the loop whenever we did any exchanges with the art or the story. Chuck was such an easy guy. He knows what's good, and if he was opposed to anything, he will say it. So we've never really had anything. Well, we had just a few, like maybe hats and the way they're guns, because I wasn't used to with those classical guns that he was describing, and so on top of that, Chuck would approve them. Real easy. So we've never really had any problems with that.
I take it there was a lot of Google search, right?
Oh yeah, that's the beauty of the internet.
What does a gun look like in 1850?
Exactly.
And Tom and Joe, tell me a little bit about your process in this. So you guys are the principal plotters, I'll say. You hand in the plot, you hand in the synopsis to Chuck, and how much freedom did Chuck actually have? Or were you more on the lines of, Here's the points we want to get to. Have at it.
Yeah, Chuck, right? Pretty much. Yeah, it was Chuck's story, to be honest. Joe and I talked to Chuck, and who are Joe and I? Basically, we're new in this, and all of a sudden we were surrounded by all these professionals. So it's very nice of them to say that we were hands off, but we were hands off for a reason. Is that we were learning. Rob actually was really the main editor, and I don't think you and I really understood the process until we saw Ivan. Rob, you know these conversations. We wouldn't really understand the page until we saw it colored. Our entire life, we've seen finished product, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you see a pencil. Hey, that looks good. Hey, that looks good inked. But when you see the final process, hey, wait, that hat's wrong, and this is, So we were just doing little stuff, but I thought it was fantastic. Rob would come in and talk with Joe and I, and then I thought Rob's inks over Mel's digital really brought that depth to the pages, and you didn't notice it until the colors. So, I think it was Rob controlling the front end and Chuck saying, hey, this stuff's great. Mel's rocking it out of the park. And it was Joe and I at the end looking at the final Ivan pages and saying, oh, okay, this is what it looks like. So I wish we were more clever, than that. But the truth of it is that we needed people to teach us this industry. We did not know the comics, and we don't want to come out and saying that we were experts. We gained a lot of knowledge through Chuck, through Rob, through Mel, and through Ivan and Taylor,
Yeah, no, Rob, I remember our first meeting, we could tell you what we liked, and you were showing us the different versions of the artists of who created that. That sticks in my head like some of us may like brunettes or blondes, or we like a certain style. So we went through and with Rob and said, okay, this is what we like. Yeah. This is the style we like. Then Rob directed us to all the creators who did that.
Yeah, it was, and Rob is an encyclopedia of the comic industry, and so it's great because
that's a nice way of putting it, right?
Oh, he is. I mean, he really, and everybody really respects him. And then you get people like Mel. Mel would not work for Rob and Chuck if there wasn't that mutual respect. So the Fenolio brothers were the complete unknown. It was that Rob trusted us, Chuck trusted our story, and then Mel followed suit. He trusted Rob, who trusted Chuck. So Hunter Ninja Bear really just came together for all the right reasons because of all the people involved. Really,
professionals.
Yeah. I mean, it really was an upstream. Everything came from Taylor, the letter up. And so we do want to say thank you to everybody. Even
it's awesome,
so I'm sure Chuck and Ivan and Taylor will see this. You guys knocked a home run, grand slam.
And vice versa. I mean, with Tom and Joe giving us so much freedom to just have fun with the book. And we weren't holding anything back. I mean, if a certain page could be blown up into a pinup or a splash, they gave us the green light. I mean, they just let us continue to rock with the books. So that's the beauty about the brothers. They let you have fun. And then
and as I was looking at the book, and I was reading the book, as I told you guys, I've been reading it the last couple of days. One thing I specifically liked about the comic was that, Mel, your pencils over Rob's inks are fantastic in the way that it still has that traditional comic book look and feel to it, as opposed to, over exaggerated panels. Like when you wanted to do something with a specific panel, you saw it, and that was done on purpose, as opposed to, I just want to do a whole bunch of crazy things, right? Because that's what I see. That's what I see a lot, right? In this day and age, I see a lot of that, to the point, and I've had these conversations with numerous people, that I'm seeing a style within mainstream in particular that has no identity. And what I mean by identity is that I'm seeing artists draw the way, as you guys said it, Marvel wants them to draw, the way DC wants them to draw. Before, I guess, the 2000s made that change, where I could, and if Rob's the encyclopedia, I'll tell you just what I'm talking about. I'm sure you understand what I mean, and I'm sure the rest of you understand what I mean. There was a time I could identify an artist just by looking at a page.
Right.
I was able to say, I know who drew that. I know that was Jim Starlin. I know that was Arthur Adams. I know that's George Perez, right? I know these names because I already know what the style they have, right? And today I don't see a lot of that.
Right.
Right. Today I see a lot of the same styles over and over. And I think it's digital has something to do with it, I think.
Oh.
And coloring for some reason. But Mel, you were gonna say?
Yeah, no, what I'm noticing is that the storytelling is disappearing. That's what I've been seeing. I mean, these are really great artists, lots of actions, just coming out at you, really dynamic. But it's for me as an artist, I love looking at it, but I can't really tell what's going on. That's one thing that I'm observing is again, the storytelling is kind of disappearing, and they're just tossing in. If it looks cool, you got Superman hitting Batman. Doesn't matter what happens in the next panel. So that's the part where you kind of get lost. I don't know if you guys are experiencing that, but that's what I've been seeing. And again, coming from an old school, I like the action. I like the splashes, but we still need a good storytelling in there.
A big part of it is they're doing it on the computer, and you can see the style where all the outlines are dead, the interior lines are dead, and you can literally look at they're building up the figure, so there's lots of blacks because they can just touch it to fill in the black in Photoshop.
Yes.
And it's also, there needs to be some detail, and you can see everybody does the same flat, dead rendering line. Especially a lot of the foreign guys are doing the same thing. And you can tell it's all straight computer. It's all flat rendering. You'll even look at smoke in the background, and the smoke in the background has the same flat, they'll just do 4 different cross hatching on the smoke. And you can go, it's literally this guy was told by Marvel or DC, you need more detail. So they're happy with the page, and then they just go in and add a bunch of gray lines for really no reason. And it's all dead lines, and you can tell that it's, I've heard that, especially like in Brazil, it's hard to get good paper. Like, so when those guys realized that they could do all this work on a computer or a laptop and not even have to deal with inferior paper, they were all for it. The faster they get a page done, the faster they get paid.
Yeah, and that makes sense. There's nothing wrong with that. It's more on the lines of building an identity through an artist, building an identity through a writer. I think we're in an age where the writer is getting more credit than the artist these days.
Yeah.
And again, I'm fine with that. We have some amazing, great writers out there. I'm not knocking our writers. We're talking about Chuck Dixon earlier. That he's a great writer, and you have great writers that are out there that are telling phenomenal stories. But we're losing a lot of strong artists. There's only a few guys I know that are, I want to say new to the business from what, they've been doing it for years, but, relatively newcomers in the sense of you got like your, Jorge Jimenez, who's a great guy. Dan Ribby is also a really good artist. But I'm starting to see more stuff coming through the other imprints that are a little more exciting than what I'm seeing through my traditional mainstream comics, even though just the other day, I just spent $50 in comic books, and a lot of them are Marvel, a lot of them are DC. So it's not to say I don't hate on them. I love my Marvel comics, I love my DC comics, but I'm not identifying who's drawing it, who's writing it, because I want to follow that artist. I want to follow that guy as opposed to following a character.
Well, it's 2022, and it's about the brand.
Yeah, it really is.
About the artist.
It really is.
Whether it's wrestling.
I was thinking the same thing, Rob.
Or it's comic books. And in comic books, the brand is the title. They don't want another Image. They don't want another where Jim Lee, Sylvester, and all those guys went to Image and Marvel stock dropped. They don't want to have that happen again. And ever since then, there's been a giant rumor that Marvel and DC will never hype the artists the way they used to, because they don't want to give the artist that much power. Writers, on the other hand, an editor could talk to a writer easily an hour or two a day, talking about future plots. Writers usually are more loyal. Think about it. A writer can rip out. He could probably rip out a 6-month story in a couple of weeks and be gone. By the time they find a penciler for that story, the writer's already on a new book. and then the penciler is the, a page a day slogging through it. So it can, it's writers are freelance employees is what they realize. They're almost employees for the business, for a lot of those Marvel and DC. And there's a lot more loyalty when it comes to the writers. And so they've just been hyping them for the last 20 years. Let's push the writers. They'll stick around. Can you imagine if you talk to a guy for an hour or two a day, you're going to have a better relationship with them than a penciler that can talk to you for 5 minutes. Like, dude, I got to get back to the page. I've got another 4 hours into this page.
Yeah.
So it is kind of a natural, evolution of the business. But I don't think it's a good part of the business, because comics are visual first. I mean, you need a guy like Chuck Dixon, but he also writes to an artist's strengths. He didn't write Hunter Ninja Bear, and then 6 months later we're like, hey, we finally found an artist. He was there saying, hey, I think Mel would be good for this project. And I'm like, I worked with Mel. Mel's awesome. So he wrote to Mel's strengths. And a lot of comic book writers don't do that. I've dealt with a lot of projects where comic book writers they think they're the editors. And they're just the boss. And they tell the penciler what to do. If they don't want to tell the penciler what to do, they've told me to change things. And I'm like, dude, I'm the inker. The penciler's my boss. You're not the boss.
Exactly. Yeah. And there is a lot of that, I guess, politicking going on in mainstream, right? I immediately gravitate to someone who, say what you want to say about his writing style, but he's the type of writer to me that writes for his artists, and I'm thinking about Jeff Loeb in particular, who I would say doesn't do the greatest writing stories. I'm going to be the first one to say that, but when you read something like Hush, you knew when he was writing Hush, he was completely thinking about Jim Lee, because right, he was thinking, this book is Jim Lee's book. I need to make sure I get everybody I could possibly get in here. Yeah. And that was the idea behind it.
3 panels, 2 panels.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but then you have guys like what I think about, and I was just talking to him this week, it was Dan Jurgens, who is a writer / artist who is clearly his own style, his own methods, but of course he works as part of a team, because when they were doing Superman, which Death of Superman 30th anniversary, would you believe that, 30 years since Superman died? So we talked a little bit about that, and saying it's a team effort, and it should feel like that. Now it's more, and you said it, you mentioned wrestling. I think of wrestling all the time, that they don't want to make a new John Cena, they don't want to make a new Hulk Hogan or Stone Cold, because they become bigger than the brand, and the brand is supposed to be bigger. And these companies are owned by conglomerates, Disney and Warner Media. So there you have it, guys. Right. Where I think companies like Phenom, who are coming out, are standing out more today, because there's something different, and it's the next wave of Image Comics all over again. I think that's happening, where we're going to see more indie titles become more popular, because they are becoming more popular. 8 Billion Genies, Grimm, you got some more stuff that are coming out on the horizon that everybody's talking about. No one's talking about the fact that Spider-Man's 60 years old. You know what I mean? It's losing its luster, even though we love those comics. But what we're loving now are the movies that are for them. Let's go back to Phenom, because that's what we really want to talk about here, right? So Fenom Comics, let's talk a little bit about Hunter Ninja Bear, and it's Hunter Ninja Bear, not one Hunter Ninja Bear. So let's put our attention to Hunter Ninja Bear. So talk to me a little bit about this concept, this book, before we start talking about the story.
Well, just listen to Rob. I do kind of want to first say is that we did, whether DC and Marvel do want to push towards the writers and push towards the brand, obviously we had Chuck Dixon, in our arsenal, so that helped. But the fans will always gravitate to the artist. Mm-hmm. So whether that's your mantra or your mission statement is to push the brand, the fans will always come back to the artist. So that's our thinking, is that we wanted to make sure that we had a very fan friendly group of artists that everyone loved seeing their work. They had just a slew full of titles and artwork. So it's really kind of it's kind of worked it worked perfectly, because even with our Kickstarter campaign, those fans weren't coming for Phenom, they were coming for Chuck, they were coming for Mel, they were coming for Rob. So we do want to say that we will always be behind the artist. So it's fun to talk, but this is for Rob, this is for Mel, because they are the only reason why Hunter Ninja Bear is here. But I guess to answer your question about Hunter Ninja Bear, it's kind of what, Joe and I would always, just as kids, we played games, and we were working one day and we saw there was a movie or something that mentioned Hunter Ninja Bear, and we thought it was just a kind of a clever concept, a triangle of death, a circle of conflict. And we just, we kind of went from there. We just started talking about it. Just fun.
Yeah, no, it's the play on the old paper, scissors, rock, Hunter Ninja Bear.
Yeah.
And, thought it was a good setup for a good story.
Yeah.
So.
And so we put it on the table. We kind of shelved it for a couple of years, and we just kind of kept talking. We said, hey, what about this? It kept coming up in our conversations. So Hunter Ninja Bear really is a Western meets a samurai film meets a Godzilla movie. So we took everything we liked. Maybe Joe likes Jaws more. We got to come up with
we got a little bit of seafaring in there in San Fran. So
yeah. We didn't get the Jaws aspect, and I didn't get the Star Wars. But outside of that, we kind of hit our spaghetti Western meets Buffoon meets Godzilla.
Classic kung fu movies from the 70s and 80s. I remember.
So, Hunter Ninja Bear. And another thing is we hate, Jaws, perfect example. Joe has watched Jaws how many times?
Too many.
2 million times, okay? And I've watched, Star Wars, or let's say even Matrix, and it's always the story. Uh-huh. And we just wanted to make sure that we had great characters that would survive the passage of time. And I think that's what we've done, is that you get to know them enough, and you care if they live or die. And I think that was great with what Chuck did, was that there are portions of this story that aren't moving at superhero speed. They're just a good story. They're laying out how these people got to where they are, and then the excitement happens.
Yeah, because it is a character building story. As I was reading it with all the chapters, you do spend a good amount of time with these characters before we get into the action. Right, there is action in between there, especially when the bear arrives.
You're right,
because the bear always brings in the action. But let's go ahead with with some of the characters that are in this book, starting with our hunter. Tell me about our hunter. Who is our hunter?
Boy, John Wilkes. John Wilkers.
Play on
Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood meets
Rambo.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like a BG right now.
He does. He does look like a BG.
Totally.
He looks like Gary Gibbs. Barry Gibbs, right?
Yeah, Barry Gibbs.
Now, as I'm reading it, all I'm going to hear is Barry Gibbs' voice now.
Nice, thanks Mel. John Wilker is a great character, and he was sort of forgotten. He was definitely a living legend in the folklore of the mountain men of 1800s, and it took a Japanese ninja to come how many thousands of miles to hire him to kill a demonic bear. But John Wilkers is a kind of simple but complex character. He's your rugged guy, but he cares for Little Heart, his companion. But most of all, he would die for all of his companions, his fellow hunters.
His posse, right? As we would call it.
So, just kind of like the good old movies like Predator, right? They didn't go right after Arnold Schwarzenegger. You got to know the guys in his infantry or his unit. And the same kind of concept we took here is we just wanted to make sure that these just weren't characters to be gotten or to be forgotten. They were something in his life that meant something that drove him to where he's going. Because obviously Volume 2 is in the works, but the ending of the story really catapults us into a different stage of the story. So
we move on. So we move on to who I would say is the heart of the story, right? Our ninja. So talk to me a little bit about our ninja here. because he's really the heart. To me, he's the heart of the story right now as I'm reading it.
Yeah, without a doubt. But boy, Joe, huge Bruce Lee fan, and I think that's where we pulled most of it. Is he kind of had that coolness about Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I think we've always had a deep respect for the Japanese culture. So when it came up to have a ninja and to research the history, it was not only necessary, but it was also interesting.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that came into play. But yeah, I mean, it all fits together. I look at the three as one. So you see it's the heart of the story, but it really is all three make up, in my mind, make up the heart.
Yeah.
It's the triangle, right? You can't have one without the others.
Right, and it is his saga. I guess we follow him through the journey, but I don't know if there's that many great ninja movies, right? There's tons of samurai movies. There's a great karate movies, but really the ninja. Joe and I did a fair amount of research because if you do kind of go back, there aren't that many great ninja movies. I mean,
they're usually like a side character to a story or something like that.
Evil guys that come in the darkness that the samurais have to kill, or the good guys.
And what I never understood about any ninja movie that everybody's like, "What's a ninja?" It's like, come on, man! Everybody's got to know what's a ninja. You know what I mean? So, and you guys play on that a little bit here too. It's like, but when I was reading this, he's the first story we really get to know a little bit about, because he loses his entire family. Spoiler alert: he loses his entire family, which kind of like begins that journey of being a farmer, samurai, and everything that goes along with it, and really, out to get the bears, as we know. So there is this drive that he has to avenge his family for his loss, because he lost everybody. And there's some great lines that Chuck put into the story that as I was reading, I was like, man, that's impactful. The way he says, like, I'm not alone, but I'm alone. I'm alone, but not alone. And he's dragging the carcasses of his family members, which is the children, everything that's happened. So, and one thing I will say about the reading the book is that it is an adult story, but it's not an R-rated story or an NC-17 story, which I've caught from it. Yeah, there's some acts of violence, but it's fairly toned in that way, and I kind of like that. I kind of like the fact that you don't need, and Mel, that's credit to your work. You don't need to like there's scenes where people lose his limbs, but it's not like you have to grossly show it. You know what I mean? Right, things like that. I think when the violence is necessary, it's necessary. It's just not overbearing. And that's something I've noticed in the artwork in particular.
No, and what, thank you, is because that was definitely done on purpose. And we had talked about that because everything is so sensationalized, is that we just wanted to get it to be very realistic. And I believe it was Rob's idea, or Chuck's, I'm not really sure, but let's kind of steer clear of the kapow, the booms, the roars. And I think a lot of the comic people that have read it have noticed that there aren't the big words like roar all over the page. We just trying to tell a story and let people put in the special effects themselves. But we were not trying to gross anybody out. We were just, tell you the truth,
not leaving any detail off the table.
Yeah, I mean, those first couple of scenes where the village gets massacred are pretty gruesome. So
yeah,
I don't think we had to explore that any more than we did.
Yeah, and it was done in like in a traditional movie. Like, so this is, if anything, it's a PG-13 type of comic, right? But it's done in a way that sometimes you get more by not seeing more. Right. So there's more to the mind. It's like, oh, what happened here? Because the scenes with the children in particular, you could have gone crazy with it, right?
Well, we kind of did, but
but even so, it wasn't that crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And well, it's funny that you said that, Paige, because Mel, we had to redraw that a couple times, right? Mel has more limbs.
I didn't realize that after you pointed that out. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm kind of.
Yeah.
So I'm envisioning Rob getting this page like, what is this? Well, you see, that's an intestine.
Yeah.
I didn't even see those pages.
Yeah,
I don't remember those pages at all.
Yeah,
I think they Chuck and Tom and Mel stopped them at Mel. I never even got that.
Yeah.
And I think Chuck is the one who said no word balloons, because I'd be, no sound effects, because I would be the guy going, "Oh, dude, where's the sound effects?"
Yeah.
So that's got to be Chuck. It's got to be Chuck.
Okay. Yeah. No, we just did not want to make a superhero movie, but we also did just not want to make this gruesome story that would, because we do want that younger fan base to read it. It's got to be scary. It's like Jaws. We saw that when we were 6. Things were a little different, right? But we were scared for a week. So that's what we sort of wanted to do to some kids, scare them, but not scar them.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is coming from a writer artist team that did Punisher. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, touche.
And now let's go to a character I really like was the bear, because this bear was awesome. I love this bear.
Yeah, the way Ivan did that color, it's amazing. That's what made it more vicious. I mean, look at how he does the feathering on the colors.
Yeah, I thought really, Mel, you obviously, but between Rob and Ivan, I know they had a lot of conversations, and I thought with the blacks, and I thought Rob and Ivan, Rob, you can probably talk more about this, but you guys had conversations, and I thought that they really found that nice parallel, because bears could be all black, right? So Rob really, I think, showed a lot of control on the inks, because he was giving Ivan what he needed to kind of carve in that color. So.
Yeah. So there's something special about this bear in particular, because it's like a clan of bears, and throughout the story, it's always that bears run solo, but these bears are different. So talk to me a little bit about the bears in particular. And
that's building off of I guess I don't know how to say it. They're just a strange pack of Japanese indigenous bears, common to that area in those little foothills of this Japanese village, but they're just different. Something skipped a generation. Something is a little off. They didn't follow the normal path of the evolution of bears. So they're a little more fierce. They're a little more wise. They're a little more intelligent. But with that, when someone trespasses against you or kills your clan, well, they have a little more elevated level of rage and vengeance. So as much as mankind can be vicious and cruel, the bear, for equally as justified reasons, they're mounting their attack, their pushback against man. So I thought it was a nice trade-off, because really all three, Joe said it, all three are the same, because we need that hunter beats bear, bear beats ninja, ninja beats hunter. We needed them all to be equal, because they're all defeating the weak point of their character, and their strength is able to, beat the weakness of the other character. So it was kind of a neat little jigsaw puzzle of, well, how does the hunter always beat the bear? How does the ninja always beat the hunter? So the bear had to be something greater than just a grizzly at Yellowstone. It just had to be, and it was fun. Yeah. And it's good.
Yeah, it's definitely I love the bear. I just love the bear, and here, even with these colors, like one thing I noticed, like you see the little blood splatters there, right? The little blood splatters, and it's not overly, again, as I mentioned, it's not overly grotesque. It's there to tell you that this is blood, because obviously we know it's red, so it's blood, so it has to be. The scar, there's a nice touch on the scar as well. So I've been enjoying reading it. So let's talk a little bit more about all the other projects that you guys have. So with that, I'm going to remove this, and we're going to go into the website, because the website is going to talk a little bit about what we have going on for Fenom Comics. So there we go, guys. And look at that. Look at that image right there. That is gorgeous stuff. So Mel, kudos. Rob, kudos. And yeah, this is really good work of colors. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about some upcoming projects that you guys have. So take it away, Tom and Joe.
Do you want it?
Yeah, go ahead. Start talking now.
I guess let's see, Star Riders. That's a sci-fi thriller, and Scott McDaniel is doing the pencils with Tony Bedard writing, and that's fantastic. Rob's doing the inks again, and we have a kind of a great grouping of colorists, which we sort of want to keep that for a later date because it's going to be spectacular. The colors.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
No, Star Riders is really Tony Bedard. You know, he does the Call of Duty, and this is probably I think his last venture in comics. You know, so this is the kind of last Tony Bedard story. So we're pretty thrilled that we got him through Rob, and it's a barn burner of a story. I mean, it's sort of The Thing meets Alien. So if you kind of think of John Carpenter's The Thing and Alien, it's really that, and it truly is a great story. It is a phenomenal, no pun intended, story.
So when are we expecting it to come out?
Well, we don't know. Joe's got a big board, and we've got everything laid out for the next year. But it's really the Kickstarter and the Indiegogo for Hunter Ninja Bear, as well as the Diamond Comics rollout to the bookstores. So following Hunter Ninja Bear, we're going to do another Chuck Dixon book, The Seven Deadly Sinners. So once that comes out, which we're excited because he teams up with Bob Harden, and Bob Harden's artwork on this book is phenomenal. And it's Smoking the Bandit meets Cheech and Chong. and it is fantastic. So
yeah, the cover alone is like, it's very interesting because you the minute you said Smoking the Bandit, I was like, oh yeah, now I see it. I was thinking about Mad Max for a second when I immediately thought of it.
Yeah, very Mad Max, but it's in that sort of 70s ballpark, and that's what Chuck and Bob wanted to do. They always wanted to do that genre piece, and just a bunch of, they're running illegal marijuana across, a county line, and everything goes hayward. Or
I see the little tagline: "Life is a highway."
Yeah, no, it's a phenomenal story, and artistically, it is a spectacular book.
So, what's our next book that you have on the horizon?
So it's going to go Hunter Ninja Bear, Seven Deadly Sinners, Star Riders, and then Something Fierce.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Something Fierce.
This is the book that got Joe and I into this. And this is the book, along with Hunter Ninja Bear. Rob actually liked Hunter Ninja Bear, and he kind of gravitated to this. But this is, I think, Phenom's signature story. Now, I don't mean that to put it's not a classification. It's just, this is what started for us. I'm not saying it's a better story or worse story. I'm just saying this is a 400-some page book that's been in the making for about 6-7 years.
I think longer than that.
Yeah. So, this thing has been on the table, and we are ready to see it finally get off the table and come to light. So it's and Ace Continuato is the artist, and we have other artists kind of filling in gaps. But Ace is doing spectacular work, and Ivan Nunes is doing the coloring as well. So, and Joe and I wrote this one. So if there is any story issues, it's because we didn't bring in professionals on this one.
But you got Ace, man. So Ace is the place. You know what they say, as they say, right?
Yeah.
And then
the combo of Ace and Ivan are amazing.
What, Rob?
I said the combo of Ace and Ivan are amazing.
Oh,
yeah. And to Rob's credit is we were going to ink that book, and Ace came out with these real detailed pencils. Right. And Rob looked
at Ace, man. I could have told you that a long time ago.
Yeah, but Rob was trying to figure out how he's going to ink and how he's going to ink. And Rob finally said, why don't you just go write the colors? Let's clean up the pencils, and let's see how it works. And Rob was right. So it ended up being a great call, and it really beautiful pages. But a lot of that, once again, went back to Rob, because Rob said, "Hey, I don't need to be in this. Let's work. Let's focus on what's best for the book."
Yeah, and Ace in particular, like I said with Ace, every time I seen Ace, and again, we love pencil inkers dynamics, but Ace is a guy that he's a penciler in the tradition that he knows how to play with that graphite. He loves the graphite. He doesn't pencil. He's a painter with a pencil.
Yeah, Ace doesn't pencil for someone to ink. Ace pencils for someone to color it, or not color it at all, because there's subtleties in the gray tones of the pencils that inks don't work that way.
You can't ink that. It's impossible to ink that. Even if you try to use, ink wash, it's just not going to work.
Mhm.
So you gotta,
No.
you just gotta just go straight to colors from him.
Yeah, Ace would have to do the gray wash. He would have to do the ink wash. You couldn't have, unless you had someone like Alex Ross go over Ace's stuff, but then it would just look like Alex Ross's stuff.
It would look like Alex Ross, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like when Alex Ross was doing George Perez, like, yeah, I love it, Alex, but it's George's pencils.
Yeah, or didn't Alex, he painted over a penciler on a DC project too.
He's done that with Jim Lee. He's penciled
Dougie Braithwaite.
Dougie Braithwaite during I think you were talking about Earth X.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
but yeah. He did a couple painted covers over Jim Lee too, and it just looked like Alex Ross.
Yeah, and you saw, of course, you saw the Jim Lee because Jim Lee has a signature style that you could still, it still comes off, but it really is. When it comes to certain painters, it's like that's how he paints. You know, he's not someone else's painter. He is the painter. In other words,
it's true.
Mm-hmm. And then we have 2 more books. So let's go to our next one. Igor, right?
Yep, Icor, the Blood of the Gods.
I got it right earlier.
Yeah. But that's a great book. My son, Joe's nephew, he kind of came up with a story way back when about tarot and about androids. It was sort of Blade Runner meets, I don't know, something. What's that one? Here, I can't talk when it's live, but Serpent in the Rainbow. That was it.
Okay.
So it's very much in that genre, but we sort of kind of put it into the comic realm, and we brought Bart Sears in to do the artwork on it. And so far, it's coming out crazy great. So Bart's loving the story. Bart's having fun with it, and away we go. So Rob's going to be inking these. Actually, he's already inked a portion of it, but we're really putting a lot of energy into that book now, and Mel's Vambrace. So we're not sure what's going to come out first, but they're pretty much neck and neck. But Icor is going to be a fantastic book. And that's another maybe 8-10 issue one. Actually, all of them are about 300 to 400 page long books.
Yeah. So they're mostly like they're mostly graphic novels.
Yeah, all these are graphic novels, right?
And let's talk about our final title here that you mentioned.
Yeah,
Vambrace.
Vambrace, and we can let Mel talk. But Mel, boy, we had so much fun with Hunter Ninja Bear, and we were just sort of, hey, Rob, you rolling?
I gotta go.
Let's see, Rob. Guys. Okay, Rob, thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
And we just had so much fun with Vambrace, and with Hunter Ninja Bear, and Mel said, hey, this is fun work with Phenom. Can I pitch my baby to you? And we said, sure, let's see it. And away, go ahead, Mel. And then you showed Joe and I this book.
This is your baby, Mel.
Well, I've been wanting to do this book. I mean, for one, it's a superhero. Believe me, I've been itching to get on a superhero book. I've been, for the past 2 decades, I've actually just been doing fantasy art, nothing with spandex or tights. And so I couldn't expose the anatomy, I couldn't exaggerate anything like that. And so this book couldn't have come most perfect time. And so what inspired me to do this book is basically thinking of the T-1000 from Terminator meets Greatest American Hero. And so that was my concept when I came up with this. And so I just wanted to, have some fun with this book. And if you can see the art, I know we don't have any samples, but this book, I'm actually trying to give the fans an experience where it almost feels real, but it's all in drawing. Just as if you're in a movie, you're feeling like you're part of the movie itself because everything is real. With this, it's the same thing, but but it's all drawn, right? Mm-hmm. And so this basically takes place in Las Vegas, and so I had to capture everything from Vegas just so that you can feel that you're really there. And so again, I'm I'm doing all the art wise besides color. It's because there's this new technique that I'm trying to explore it, and it's coming out really nice. I think it's very explosive, and again, it's a book to must have. I think the fans are going to be blown away from how this is going to come out. Uh, yeah, but
Yeah.
I could talk about the story just a bit, but I'm not really good at holding too much information. I end up giving away, so I'm gonna just cut it from here.
Yeah, when it's your baby, you're like, well, let me tell you a little bit about the story. It's gonna be this, and then at the end, it's like, no, dude, we need to
Yeah.
sell the book.
Yeah. DC comes out with Van Bros. Yeah.
Van Bros.
And then also, of course, we got Tom and Joe to help out with the story wise.
Yeah,
Again,
I see their
this
names right there.
Yeah, this book couldn't really be where it's at. I mean, from the story wise, I've given Tom a complete synopsis of the whole thing, and Tom just turned around and made like, hey, let's add this in there. How about we take this out? And I'm like, whoa, how come I didn't think of that? Again, from their ideas, we're all collaborating on the story. It's wow, it's gonna be amazing. People are gonna be really in shock when they grab a hold of this book.
Yeah, I think it's a great story, and Mel, you give it to me, and then we're just always talking. So over lunch, Joe and I have lunch every day, and we just kind of go over stories. So a lot of that is, we can read each other. Like if someone says, "Hey, that's cool," but if it's, and then we end up changing it. So
Right.
a lot of that is we're hearing your story for the first time, and kind of like you talk back to a good show or not. You say, "Oh, they should have done that. The girls shouldn't have gone into that room with axes." That's how we are, and we kind of we've been having a fun kind of molding your synopsis around to kind of the story that we, like the types of stories that we really like. But your story is really there. It's just us kind of cleaning up the edges.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, Fenom Comics sounds really exciting. I'm so looking forward to seeing all these titles come out. Obviously, the first one is Hunter Ninja Bear, but tell us where people could get your stuff as of right now and moving forward.
Phenomcomics.com, phenomcomics.com. If you click on the Hunter Ninja Bear, you can actually purchase a paperback that way. But we just closed off our Kickstarter campaign, which we do want to say thank you to all the backers.
Yeah, thank you.
Last minute, like the last couple of days, man, you went right into it.
Well, that's Chuck Dixon. A shout out to Chuck, is he literally went on a just went on a crusade for us. And
marketing campaign, like unlike any other.
Yeah, so Chuck and Mel, because Mel and Rob and Ivan, listen, the whole 60 days, they were out there pounding the pavement. But the last 2 weeks, Chuck just put it into hyperdrive. And that was really a credit to Chuck, is that he really helped push us through the edge or the finish line.
Yeah, and I remember talking to you about that. You were like, I'm stressed, man. I'm stressed. And I was like,
well,
I think you'll make it.
Well, it's funny because Joe had said, hey, let's do the 20,000 limit, because we didn't really know. This is our first Kickstarter. We don't know. Yeah. And so I was, it was late at night, and I thought I was just doing the preview, where you're just previewing it. And I hit publish, and I never changed it from 50 to 20. So the whole thing was a big stress that what did I do? Here we put 30,000 more than we ever thought. So Joe's like, what are you doing? So it worked out, but it was
meant
really,
to be then. That's what that was.
Yeah. So a mistake ended up being great, but it really goes back to the fans, because they've been great. They've been supportive, and we're right now just trying to make sure that we, get all this stuff out to them. But we're going to go to Indiegogo in the next week. But check out our website, because our website, you can purchase the book right now. So
and the books are printed. So
yeah, we have a couple pallets, and they're ready to go, and they're beautiful. You've seen them, so we're pretty thrilled.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And just all the backing, just to explain to all the fans, is that all the backing is now going into the next book. So the money that we're doing from the Kickstarter to Indiegogo, that does go into like the second printing. We're already on our second printing of Hunter Ninja Bear. So
Yes.
we have printed over just thousands of books, and we've already have kind of gone through that. So we're on our second printing of Hunter Ninja Bear, and we're now this money is going to help fund Seven Deadly Sinners, the Chuck Dixon second book. So we're just sort of pushing that money into the next project.
Awesome.
So
That is awesome. So starting with you, Mel, where can we find you?
Well, I just the usual Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's all that I have for now.
It's all you need.
Yeah, that's all I need, right? And so
Trust me.
yeah, or more of this. Again, this is like my second time, but I'm coming out of my shell. I'm spreading my wings.
You did well. You did well, Mel.
But, yeah, hopefully, more like this. That's where you'll see me.
And Tom and Joe, where can we find you guys?
Fenom Comics and Facebook, Instagram, everything, kind of like Mel. We're definitely out there, but it's always Fenom Comics, one word, no hyphen. And we're going to be making the Comic Cons maybe come 2023. So give us a year and we'll be out there. So we'll have Mel, Rob, Chuck, we'll have the whole panel, and we're really going to promote the brand. But, Joe and I have always stepped away. This is strange for us talking because this is really about the artist, and Chuck, Mel, Rob, Ivan, Taylor, they've done an awesome job.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Hold on. I'll talk to you in a minute, but I'm going to close up and wrap up things, okay? So don't go anywhere, guys.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
All right.
So there you have it, guys. Thank you for watching the show. Again, if you like what you see, hit subscribe, like the channel, and support the Izzyverse. There's different ways you can watch the Izzyverse. You could either listen to the podcast, so you can review and rate the podcast, and you can always support the Izzyverse from there. Or if you want to go to YouTube and watch the Izzyverse, this is the place you watch it, right here on YouTube under Izzyverse. Until next time, guys, I will see you at the Izzyverse. Bye.